and welcome to Getting Set, a basic high school level set design course. I'm your instructor, Jason McIntyre. For today's lesson, we'll be dealing with elevations. Alright, so an elevation is a drawing that shows the front, back, or side of a specific piece from the ground plan. Now this is a head-on view of the section with no perspective added. It contains all of the construction information needed in order to build the piece, as well as all of the details that will go onto that piece. Now, some scenery is pretty basic, right? Like a 4x8 flat. Other scenery, like a rock or a tree, gets a little bit more complicated when it comes to drawing those elevations. You're gonna want more than one drawing to communicate that information. And in other cases, extra structure is needed. Like if you wanted to hang a picture or a mirror. You're going to want like a toggle or a stud for that. So on the flat, we draw a dotted line where that extra toggle or stud would go, right? So there's a lot of information that's going to go onto this drawing. But how do we do that without it looking like a mess? Small bits of information can be communicated using a leader line. This is an S-curved arrow that leads from the information and points to a specific area on the drawing. Now, information that applies to the whole drawing, for that we use a note box. This is an area set aside somewhere on the drawing, nice and neat, that is boxed in or circled. The information in it is written out as a command, not a request. So it should be very specific and should be well organized. Okay, so leader lines, note boxes, those communicate specific types of information, like support structure. What's holding your set up? How is it rigged? The hardware we're using, hinges, doorknobs, casters. What kind of materials are we using? Plywood, Luan, muslin, and other details like is it painted? Are we doing a stencil? But how do we get the information from the ground plan to an elevation? So each elevation is keyed to a specific symbol on the ground plan known as a marker. The marker points directly at the wall or the unit that it's meant to identify with. The base of the triangle on the marker is parallel to the unit or the wall that it is identified. Now, don't go try to create your own marker. This is a very specific symbol with a very specific identity. Your markers should flow around your ground plan. They should go from left to right, and they should go from downstage to upstage. So, are you ready to draw your elevation? Let's go.
For this exercise, you will need a standard sheet of white paper, a scale ruler or standard ruler, a mechanical pencil with 0.7 millimeter lead, and a flat drawing surface.
Alright, so we're ready to draw our first page of elevations. So what we start with is we have a 1/4 inch heavy border all the way around our page, and then what we're going to do is we're going to measure down from that top border 3 feet, give ourselves a tick mark, and then measure over and come down 3 feet. And that is going to be our top boundary line for our series of flats. And we're just going to draw a light line across the top. And then from that line we're going to measure down 10 feet, which is the height, the finished height of our flats. And we're going to come down and we're going to give ourselves a mark. And we're going to give ourselves a mark. And that's going to be the bottom boundary line for our flats. And then just straight line it very lightly. Now we're going to measure down 2 feet from that bottom boundary line, and we're going to set up our letter guide. So at 0, and then at 3 inches, and at 6 inches, we're going to give ourselves marks. We're going to come over, and then again 2 feet down goes 0, 3, 6. Those are the marks for our letter guide. And then we're going to come and straight line it across very lightly. Make sure that checks out for our letter guide. And then the bottom of our letter guide. And there's that. Now we can fit more flats down on the bottom of this, but for this lesson we're only going to do 4 flats across the top. So the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to give ourselves a mark 3 feet away from our border on the left, and that is going to be the outside edge of flat A. So we're going to spin, straight line it, and come down, jump over, hit that letter guide. Flat A is going to be 4 feet wide, so give ourselves a mark, spin it, come down and down. Now we're going to jump over 3 feet, and this is going to be the outside edge of flat B. So we're going to move over and mark it. Skip over onto our letter guide. Now, flat B is going to be 9 feet long. So line ourselves up, mark 0, mark 0. Come down, and come down. Now move over another 3 feet, and we're going to do the outside of flat C. Flat C is going to be 2 foot 6 inches long, and this is our return wall. So then we're just going to measure in 2 foot 6 and then hit 0, 0, line it out, jump over 3 feet, and we'll do our last wall in this series, which will be wall D. And wall D is going to be our door flat. So we're going to come down, and it's 3 feet again. Mark it and mark it. Okay, so now we're going to go to our letter guide, and we're going to title each one of our elevations. So the first one in the series is going to be elevation A, and we're going to abbreviate that because elevation isn't going to fit in here. And then what we do from our plan symbol is we put the letter A in here, and then we draw a circle around it. And then we repeat this all the way along until we get to D. Okay, so now all our elevations have been labeled. So now we're going to lay out our bookcase and our doorway. So the bookcase from our ground plan starts 6 inches out of the corner and then is 2 feet wide. And then our door is a 2 foot 6 wide door. So we're going to come 3 inches out of the corner and then move over, put our 6 inch mark there, and mark ourselves at 2. Now our bookcase and our doorway are going to be the same height. So we're going to measure up 2 foot, 6 foot 8 inches, measure up 6 foot 8 inches, and give yourself a mark, and then another 6 foot 8, and give yourself a mark. Now shift over 6'8", and 6'8". And then we're going to straight line those right across. Make sure everything picks up just right, and we're going to come across, and we're going to come across. Then we can just straight line ourselves right up. Right up. Right up. And right up. So there's our door and our bookcase. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to put in details on our walls. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to put in some crown molding. So our crown molding, the bottom of the crown molding is going to be 9'7" from the floor. So the bottom of our crown is 9'7". So we give ourselves a mark, and then we're going to come all the way across and measure up 9'7" from the floor. Give ourselves a mark. Now we can straight edge right across and make sure that you skip the gaps in the flat. So there's our crown. The next detail we're going to lay in is a picture rail. So the top of the picture rail is going to be 8'4" from the floor. So we're going to mark ourselves here at 8'4". Give ourselves a mark. We're going to come all the way across and do 8'4" up here. Swing it out. And come across. And make sure that you jump across your flats. Now the bottom of our picture rail is going to be at 8'1", which makes our picture rail 3 inches wide. So 1 inch on our bottom line, go to 8. 1 inch on our bottom line, go to 8. Spin it. Come across. Okay, so then after a picture rail, we're going to do a chair rail. Now, what we should do before we do the chair rail is we should frame in our bookcase. So we're going to put trim around our bookcase. The trim around our bookcase is going to be 3 inches wide. And the same is going to be the trim on our doorway. But we're not going to trim the door, we're not going to have to draw the trim on the doorway because it's already at 3 inches wide. So then we're going to come up 3 inches from the top of our door, and we're going to measure 3 inches out. So now we should be able to come right across here, straight edge that, straight edge that, come up our side, come up our side, and there's our bookcase trim. Now we're going to put in our chair rail. So our chair rail is going to be 3'3" from the bottom. Will be the top of the chair rail. Door frame's not going to get any chair rail. So 3'3" from the bottom on flat C. And come across. And then again, our chair rail
is going to be 3 inches wide. So now we're going to come 3 foot from the bottom. Give ourselves our tick mark. Swing it across. A little bit there and across there. Now we're going to do our baseboard. So our baseboard is going to be 5 inches wide. So all again we do is come 5 inches up from that bottom guideline. Five inches up. And then come across. And then we've added detail to our flat. The thing I want to point out is that since C is such a small flat, instead of writing out elevation, we just wrote the symbol C down there to key it to our ground plan. So the next thing we'll do is put in our dimension lines and our information. Alright, so we've gone ahead and finished off our elevations by adding our dimension lines. We've put in a few lead lines. There's a hidden construction support line here to hang our picture. We also have our note box that has a few details in it about our set and what's required for paint. As far as our dimension lines go, our exterior dimension lines are across the top, our interior dimension lines are across the bottom, and then our heights, starting with the tallest one, start out on the far left and we move across. All that being said, you should be able to do all the elevations for the drawing shown earlier in the lesson. Thank you.
Well, I hope you found that lesson to be entertaining and informative. Until next time, I'll be getting ready while you're getting set.